Nobody could have predicted the shocking turn of events that exploded onto the screens of golf fans around the world that afternoon. In what felt like the blink of an eye, Rory McIlroy went from strolling down the fairway with the confident stride of a man who seemed utterly in command of both his game and his emotions, to a complete and very public unraveling. This meltdown happened live on television, right in the heart of a prestigious major championship, where the stakes are always at their absolute highest. But what makes this entire episode truly extraordinary and deeply fascinating is not simply the visible outburst captured by the cameras. It runs much deeper than that, into the hidden struggles, the unseen battles, and the layers of pressure building quietly beneath the surface that very few people were discussing at the time. These concealed elements provide the real explanation for why everything unfolded the way it did and completely reshape how one interprets that dramatic moment. To truly appreciate the full scope of this story, we need to travel back to the days and hours leading up to the official start of the PGA Championship. Rory arrived at the host venue carrying the impressive status of the world's #2 ranked player. The atmosphere was electric. Media members were buzzing with anticipation, eager to capture every word and every swing. Fans formed long lines just to catch a glimpse of his practice sessions, studying his every movement with admiration. Betting markets reflected this excitement, installing him as one of the strongest favorites in a deep and talented field. On paper, the stars appeared perfectly aligned for a potential Rory masterclass. His form in recent tournaments had been impressive, he carried positive momentum from previous majors, and the course characteristics seemed tailor-made for his powerful driving game and overall skill set. Everything pointed toward this being a breakthrough opportunity for him to finally claim another major title. However, keen observers who paid extra close attention during the pre-tournament press conferences and practice rounds might have noticed small but revealing signs. Rory would occasionally shift his weight from one foot to the other in a manner that looked almost casual at first, but once recognized, became impossible to ignore. Behind the scenes, quiet reports began emerging from the practice facilities that all was not entirely well. The issue was not mechanical, not a flaw in his swing path or a temporary lapse in mental focus. Instead, it was something physical and increasingly bothersome. A blister had developed on one of his toes, growing painful enough to force him to cut short at least one full practice round after playing only a limited number of holes. Now, pause for a moment and truly consider the physical demands this places on any professional golfer during a major week. These athletes do not simply stand in one spot and swing a club. They walk enormous distances, often covering between 5 and 7 miles or more per round, sometimes in varying weather conditions across uneven terrain. Every single action in golf, from the most explosive drive off the tee to the softest touch around the greens, begins with a solid, reliable connection to the ground. The feet serve as the critical foundation for balance, power transfer, stability, and rhythm. When that foundation is compromised by sharp, persistent pain, it creates a ripple effect that influences timing, weight shift, confidence, and decision-making throughout the entire round. Rory was essentially trying to perform at the highest level while standing on a base that was actively working against him with every step he took. But the situation grew even more intense and revealing than the blister alone. According to several well-placed accounts, Rory made the drastic and highly determined decision to remove the toenail himself in an effort to manage the pain and remain competitive. Imagine that for a second. He performed this painful self-procedure just so he could lace up his golf shoes and step onto the course without being forced to withdraw. This act highlights an incredible combination of raw toughness, deep competitive fire, fierce personal pride, and an almost stubborn refusal to let physical limitations dictate his participation. It was a private sacrifice made in pursuit of glory, unknown to the thousands of spectators and millions watching from home. When Rory finally appeared on the first tee, the public image was one of complete readiness. He looked composed, focused, professionally dressed, and mentally locked in, just as fans had come to expect from a multiple-time major winner and consistent world top contender. What nobody in the gallery or in front of their screens could possibly know was that this elite athlete was already engaged in a silent, personal war against significant physical discomfort even before striking his opening drive. That hidden battle added an invisible weight to every movement from the very beginning. As the round got underway, the subtle effects of this struggle started revealing themselves. Drives that usually found the short grass with breathtaking accuracy began drifting into trouble. The elegant, powerful rhythm that has made Rory one of the most thrilling and aesthetically pleasing players to watch was slightly disrupted. With each wayward shot and missed opportunity, the internal frustration began to simmer and rise. Bogeys appeared on the scorecard, then another and another. The once enthusiastic crowds around him grew noticeably quieter. His caddy increased communication, offering support and guidance. Rory's jaw tightened, his expressions hardened, and that constant foot pain continued to throb with every stride across the grass. This was far more than just a bad day or one errant swing. It was the culmination of mounting pressures that had started building long before the tournament began. By the time he reached the 13th hole, a par 4 that also happened to mark his 13th hole of the round, the entire performance had spiraled far from the expected script. Strokes were being lost rapidly, the scorecard looked increasingly damaging, and the margin to the leaders was widening. Standing on that tee box, Rory pulled out his driver with visible intent. In that loaded moment, something inside him finally snapped. The ball sailed offline into the rough, and the reaction was instantaneous and explosive. He slammed the club into the turf with tremendous force, a jolt that seemed to reverberate through everyone watching. His face twisted with a mixture of anger, disappointment, exhaustion, and pain, an expression so raw that it needed no accompanying words. The immediate silence from nearby fans was deafening. Other caddies turned their heads. Unedited footage of this high-profile collapse began circulating online at lightning speed, spreading across social media, news sites, and fan forums before he had even completed the hole. After fighting through the remaining holes to post a disappointing 74 that left him well outside contention, Rory entered the media center. Reporters, sensing the delicacy of the situation, asked careful diplomatic questions about his thoughts on the round, future plans, and the course setup. In reply, Rory delivered a brutally concise verdict on his own play using just one single, powerful word. That solitary response struck deeper and resonated more strongly than any extended, polished monologue ever could. It was honest, unfiltered, and stripped of all public relations safeguards. The room fell momentarily silent, and in that pause it became clear this was no ordinary post-round interview. This was a man openly acknowledging the depth of his internal turmoil. The broader golf world's response was mixed and passionate. While many offered empathy and understanding, a large group immediately began comparing the incident to Sergio Garcia's memorable outburst at the Masters years earlier, where Garcia became the first player to receive an official yellow card for aggressive behavior toward his equipment. Online discussions heated up rapidly. Had Rory crossed an important line? Did he deserve an official warning from tournament authorities? What responsibility did the PGA Championship have in addressing such moments publicly? Almost overnight, the conversation expanded far beyond one player's difficult afternoon. It became a larger, more significant debate about acceptable standards of conduct in golf, the boundaries of emotional expression, and how the sport should balance tradition with modern realities. Golf has always maintained a complex and often contradictory relationship with human emotion. On one hand, longtime traditionalists insist that the game's elegance and integrity demand exceptional composure, self-control, and decorum, qualities that distinguish it from louder, more physically demonstrative sports. On the other hand, contemporary fans increasingly crave authenticity, wanting to see players experience real feelings, show passion, and express themselves genuinely because it makes the sport more relatable, dramatic, and emotionally engaging. Rory McIlroy has spent much of his career walking this fine line. His natural intensity and visible passion draw people in and create compelling theater. Yet when combined with external pressures and physical pain, that same intensity can boil over unexpectedly. Adding even more dramatic weight to the entire situation was the wider context of this particular major. The championship was already proceeding without several of its greatest marquee attractions. Tiger Woods continued his long recovery from serious physical setbacks caused by his well-known accident. Phil Mickelson was absent due to important family matters. The lack of these iconic figures created a noticeable vacuum of star power and shifted the energy of the entire week. Into that space stepped Rory, the player many believed would rise up and dominate the narrative, only for events to take a very different and memorable turn with that club slam on the 13th hole. This combination of factors made the following days incredibly compelling to follow. While golf has witnessed miraculous comebacks from opening round disasters leading all the way to victory, Rory's challenge carried extra layers of difficulty. He would need to recover while managing a painful foot injury that had already required such extreme self-treatment. All of this would happen under intense public scrutiny, with video clips of his emotional moment replaying constantly across every platform. Such a multifaceted test of mental strength, physical endurance, and resilience would crush most ordinary competitors who have never experienced the unique glare of a major championship. Still, history has shown that there is something special and unyielding about Rory McIlroy. He has endured very public career trials, devastating final-round collapses, painful near-misses in majors, and moments where everything seemed to disintegrate under the eyes of the world. Each time, a renewed, quieter, and more determined version of Rory has eventually re-emerged, often playing with heightened focus and danger. The essential question hanging over the rest of the tournament was clear: which version would arrive at the first tee the following morning? The one who successfully processed the frustration and transformed it into powerful motivation, or the one still carrying the heavy emotional and physical burden from Thursday? Quietly, many realized the foot problem was unlikely to magically improve and might actually worsen with additional miles walked, more steps taken, and continued pressure on the injured area. From here on, every strong drive, every crisp iron shot, and every successful putt Rory made would carry a hidden story of courage and endurance that most home viewers could never fully appreciate. Each achievement would represent a victory not only against the golf course and fellow competitors, but against personal adversity that would cause many others to simply withdraw from competition entirely. The tournament itself began feeling different, more unpredictable and open. With a shifting leaderboard missing big names and early chaos in the expected storylines, an unusual window of opportunity started to appear. A door swung wide for a player who was not originally supposed to be the central figure of the week to quietly go about his business, stay out of the spotlight, and potentially seize the championship while everyone else remained fixated on Rory's situation. This is precisely how unexpected major winners are often born, by ignoring the surrounding noise and simply focusing on playing golf at the highest level. At this point, Rory McIlroy stands as an injured, frustrated, and publicly exposed figure following his difficult Thursday. The biggest questions of the entire week, and perhaps his entire season, now loom large. Can he mentally move past that opening 74 and start fresh? Can he successfully manage the ongoing foot issue well enough to complete another 72 holes without further deterioration? Can he tune out the viral footage that every golf fan has seen repeatedly and regain his rhythm? If he somehow accomplishes all of this and fights his way back into serious contention by the weekend, the entire story transforms into something legendary. It becomes one of the most remarkable, inspiring, and talked about comeback narratives in the long history of major championship golf. However, if the struggles continue to compound, if the frustration lingers, the physical pain intensifies, and the scores keep suffering, then this week could be remembered as a critical turning point. A moment where years of building pressures finally surfaced all at once under the brightest lights. Regardless of what unfolds next, one thing is certain: the cameras will follow Rory McIlroy with even greater intensity on every single shot, not only because of his exceptional talent, but because the entire golf world is now waiting with anticipation to see exactly which side of this resilient, passionate, and complex champion shows up when he returns to the course. The drama is far from over, and the coming days promise to deliver even more unforgettable chapters to this already compelling story.